Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back into the video today, and today, wow, another you thought it couldn't get crazier after what you saw last night. It did. I mean, this trade is not as big as what we saw last night with AD and Luka, but I mean, this is another huge trade, another huge blockbuster trade. Zach LaVine, two-time All-Star, who's averaged almost 25 points per game this season, is headed to Sacramento alongside I hope I'm saying this right, City Siasco, who was a draft pick a year ago, second-round draft pick for the Spurs, and draft capital are headed to Sacramento. I'm going to go over the full details in just a minute, but I got to say this. I'm not surprised that we're seeing a big deal like this happening because a bunch of insiders told us after the AD and Luka trade that trade was really going to open up the market, and that trade was going to push teams to making deals. I actually didn't know if we would see a deal happen today on Sunday. I thought maybe, okay, GMs might take it easy on Sunday. You know, you got church, you got all that other, Sunday's the chill day of the week, and I didn't actually know if we would see anything happen. I thought maybe the league would calm down for a day with with what we saw last night, and that'd be a day of processing what the hell just happened because everybody's still in shock. And it was like that for most of the day because outside of the Utah Jazz waiving Mo Bamba, nothing happened today until this trade happened. Just a bunch of rumors outside of Mo Bamba getting waived by the Jazz. And so then this happens to start off the night. It's funny. I'm watching the Grammys on the other TV. Got the Bucks and Grizzlies on. Next thing I know, I see Shams breaking, and I couldn't see the whole thing. I just see Spurs trading for. I know what the breaking. I already know what it is. I already know it's Fox going to San Antonio. But when I saw that, I had no idea that it was LaVine as well. And when I opened it, I was shocked seeing that as well in the alert from Shrania. But I will say this. I am surprised. I am not surprised that Fox is headed to San Antonio. I did not think a LaVine trade was going to happen. I thought the Bulls would be more focused on trading Vucevic. I think that's still going to happen. I think they're going to be focused on trading some other players like Torrey Craig, Lonzo potentially. I think the Bulls are continue to be sellers. But honestly, what I was expecting was LaVine to stay in Chicago. He made it clear he wanted to stay in Chicago when asked. Chicago, it seemed like they weren't huge on trading him, but it has happened. And I got to say, what a trade for the Sacramento Kings. Look, if you ask me, I think De'Aaron Fox is a better player than Zach LaVine, but I don't think there's a huge difference. Fox is a amazing player. I think one of the fastest players in this league, one of the fastest players I've seen in this league, the way he moves down the court. And that's dangerous as well, especially when you have a 7'4" player like Victor Wembanyama. You put a fast player like Fox with such a tall player in Victor Wembanyama, that can be a dangerous duo. But obviously Fox, I think, if you ask me, if you ask a lot of people, you'll hear people say Fox is a better player than LaVine, averaging 25 points per game and averaging 6 assists per game, 5 rebounds per game. He's a terrific player. But LaVine isn't that far off from him, is he really? I mean, LaVine, the points are not, there's not much of a difference with the points. He's averaging 24. There's only a 1 point difference. He's averaging 5 rebounds per game, 4.5 assists per game. There's not much of a difference there. And another big difference between Zach LaVine and De'Aaron Fox that I think is a huge difference in this Kings team is Fox is a terrible three-point shooter, shooting 32%. And LaVine is one of the best guys when it comes to three-point shooting in basketball, shooting almost 45%, 7.3 attempts per game. And the Kings have been a poor shooting team this year. And I'm going to be honest, I think LaVine and Sabonis could be such a dirty duo right there because you have Sabonis, who is such an elite facilitator for a big man, and then you got LaVine, who's such an elite shooter. Those two guys could be dangerous. Then you got DeMar DeRozan, who's one of the best mid-range shooters of all time. So those three could be really nice together. I mean, I don't know if they'll be as successful as Fox and Sabonis and DeRozan were, although, I mean, I don't know how much better you really have to be when those guys were only 24 and 24 with each other. But I like that. I'm not going to tell you, if it was just Fox for LaVine straight up, I don't know how I'd feel about it. But it's also the fact that they got 3 first-round picks and 3 second-round picks with a a two-time All-Star who has another 2 years left on his deal after this season's over, and all they gave up was De'Aaron Fox, an All-Star who's a great player, but had no interest in re-signing with the team, told them he wasn't going to extend with them, and he was going to leave after next season once he reached free agency, and then a terrible contract in Kevin Huerter. I mean, they're not, and Jordan McLaughlin, you want to include that, but he barely played for the Kings this year. They're not giving up much in this trade. I mean, it's just Fox, who was a goner, Huerter, who was a terrible contract, McLaughlin, who didn't play at all, and you get Zach LaVine, who's a two-time All-Star and a great three-point shooter, and I think he's not as good as Fox, but he's near his level, and with him, you get 3 firsts and 3 seconds. The draft capital that they're getting alongside a two-time All-Star is insane. So shout out to the Kings for pulling off this deal. I don't know how they made this work to get 6 draft picks with a two-time All-Star when giving up a one-time All-Star who was planning on leaving. The only reason I would say that I think the Kings were able to pull off this trade and get the draft capital they got is because I think San Antonio is fully confident that they 100% have an extension lined up with De'Aaron Fox. And they wouldn't give up this much for him if they didn't. If they weren't sure on where Fox was about staying with the team, they're not getting this much for De'Aaron Fox. But since the Spurs know he is a part of the future plans, I think it's obvious that that's why the Kings got this much for him. But so the Kings get LaVine, they get City Siasco from the Spurs, who's a solid young player who was a second-round pick last year. They also get 3 first-round picks, one from Charlotte that's this year's draft, one from San Antonio in 2027, which I imagine if Fox is on an extension and you got Wembanyama, that might not be a very good draft pick because the Spurs might be very good in 2027. But 2031 Minnesota, that draft pick, Minnesota's draft pick, 2031, that might be a dangerous pick to have because, look, there's no guarantee Anthony Edwards can still be a Timberwolf in 2031. So that could be a really nice draft pick if Minnesota's not playing too good of basketball in 2031, and they get 3 second-round picks. One of them is their own draft pick, and then the Bulls get Zach Collins, Trey Jones, Kevin Huerter, and their own 2025 second-round pick. I got to be honest, I'm disappointed. The Bulls talk about how they want to get first-round picks, and their player capital they got in this trade wasn't even that good to just to get a second-round pick for a two-time All-Star who's having a great season like LaVine is, and some solid players back with him. Look, the players are solid. I'm not going to act like they're not. But I thought the Bulls got robbed in this trade. Compared to what the Kings got, the Kings give up a All-Star, and they get 3 first-round picks with an All-Star and 3 second-round picks. Meanwhile, you look at what the Bulls got for an All-Star, and it looks terrible compared to what the Kings got. So, yeah, it's definitely interesting. It is definitely interesting to see how the Bulls how the Bulls have completely two terrible trades, if you ask me, in their last 2 trades. Josh Giddey and Alex Caruso was a terrible trade. I think if you look at the Bulls with what they got, I think if you look at the player wise, it looks like a good trade for the Bulls because Josh Giddey is playing such great basketball for the Bulls, and the Bulls have won the trade, if you ask me. But the fact that they made a trade with the team that has the most draft capital in the world, and Alex Caruso apparently had such an expensive price tag, and they couldn't manage to get a first-round pick or a couple of second-round picks with Josh Giddey, that's disappointing to me. Even though that trade has been better off for them, I'm still disappointed that they didn't end up with any draft picks, and recently, the last couple of months, we've been hearing they were upset about that they didn't end up with any draft picks, and that's why they wanted to improve their draft picks by trading LaVine or Vucevic. And what do? They only get a second-round pick? The Bulls have to be disappointed with this trade, if you ask me. Let me know your thoughts on the trade in the comment section, and peace out.